Somewhere on the internet right now, someone is explaining why Regina George wasn't that bad. And it's not just Regina, but characters like her. Glamorous, feminine, stylish women who rule their worlds through manipulation, charisma, and being endlessly quotable. I can understand why this is happening because reevaluating media is a lot of fun. Like seeing 13 going on 30 from the perspective of Wendy is deranged. Imagine you're about to get married, and out of nowhere, your fiancé is obsessed with a girl he didn't talk to since middle school. Or realizing that Austin Ames is one of the worst rom-com love interests. He not only willingly dated an openly mean girl, and didn't have the guts to break up with her, so he emotionally cheated instead. But the social media-based need to sanitize female villains because they're fun to watch and have qualities we admire misses the point. Villains are compelling because, unlike the hero, they don't need to be wrapped in a layer of moral righteousness. They get to be selfish, cruel, dramatic, and charming without apologizing for it. And when women characters occupy that space, the internet rushes to explain why they were never really the villain to begin with. I'm not seeing the angelic rebrand of glamorous women characters. They were written to be sharp, manipulative, and unforgettable, and that's exactly why they work. You are more than welcome to agree or disagree as to why I think we should let girly pop villains be girly pop villains. So now, let's get started. There are a few reasons why the girly villain wasn't the villain carries a host of problems, and one of them is that it excuses bad behavior. Some people in the Mean Girls fandom love protecting Regina George while vilifying Janice Ian, when the point is that Janice and Regina are two sides of the same coin. Janice was mean to Katie and was a fake friend. She refuses to pronounce her name correctly and uses her as a tool for her middle school revenge. Regina, at first, seems more polite. A little bit. But every nice gesture is a strategy and a mind game. That bracelet skirt thing she did is so close to life. I heard some people describe Regina as being nice in the beginning because she let Katie sit with her, but aside from passive aggression, her niceness is to monitor her, and a strategy to not be outshined. Janice uses resentment as a weapon, while Regina uses power. She has a good idea on how to use social dynamics for her benefit, and if anyone gets hurt in the process, then that's not her problem. No one talks about this, but she made up a Planned Parenthood thing because some randy dude didn't call her friend back. Planned Parenthood girl never got brought up again. I hope she's okay. It comes to show that if you're popular and charming enough, you can get away with so much. Regina is a well-written and iconic villain because her cruelty is casual, strategic, and socially rewarded, not because she's secretly misunderstood. And I say this with sincerity, can the dark femininity girls please stop gloating over her? Her strategy's lost in the end. Remember that. Similarly to how Janice Ian keeps getting pointed as the real villain, Andy's friends and boyfriends in The Devil Wears Prada have been getting it in the past few years. They've been reevaluated as unsupportive and jealous of Andy's success. They need to get how big of a deal this job is, and Andy just needs to grind on a job that doesn't pay great. And she doesn't even get to write. This interpretation of The Devil Wears Prada really irks me because the story emphasizes that the environment in Runway has countless red flags. On her first day at work, she's not allowed to ask questions, gets random rude comments about her body, and gets calmly yelled at because she thinks two identical belts look the same. Her job also doesn't leave the office. She has to make impossible requests during her time off. Andy had to see Chicago while thinking about a thunderstorm in Florida. This is not a way to live. And yes, her friends happily accepted gifts from her job. You could say they were hypocrites, but to be fair, this was when Andy still had a social life. The comments Andy made about the double standards of male and female bosses has some truth to it, but in this context, it comes across that she's saying that to excuse Miranda's actions. The point isn't that Runway and Miranda taught Andy how to be ambitious. It changed her for the worse. At first, when she was glued to her phone, following demands, she was becoming another Emily, and near the end, she almost became another Miranda. She literally said, "Everyone wants to be us." And I think she smiled at the end, not because she secretly rooted for Andy, but because she saw her escape from the fashion trenches. Miranda knew exactly what she was doing, which is why she is the undeniable villain of the story. A fabulous one, but still a villain. Which brings me to my next point. Claiming female villains as not the true villains removes their agency. Suddenly, they're not cruel because they choose to be, they're victims of circumstance. Catherine Mertille has been claimed as a victim of patriarchy, when she's quite misogynistic herself. Some viewers got really distracted by her speech of, "God forbid I exude confidence and enjoy schmecks." It was taken as this big call-out on sexism, but the way I see it, I think she's frustrated that she has to cultivate an image of wholesomeness to manipulate others, mostly other young women. While she low-key judges Annette and Cecile for being less experienced than her, she still orchestrates their awakening so they can be labeled as corrupt. And Sebastian is undoubtedly a villain too. He plays up the reformed bad boy thing, which is a trope I can't disagree more with. And the double standards between them are very real. But acknowledging that doesn't make Catherine a victim. Also, you can't tell me she doesn't have fun being evil. She literally talks like a Shakespearean villain. Another character that has gotten the "she was the victim" thing was Meredith Blake from The Parent Trap. And before I say anything, yes, I agree that the parents were the main villains of the story. Separating twins at birth and never mentioning it again is unhinged behavior. Meredith had nothing to do with that. Nick lied to her. But she wasn't an innocent bystander. Meredith wanting a marriage with financial stability isn't the issue. The problem is how she goes about it. She's not a motherly type. She hates things that crawl, which is fine, but she attaches herself to a guy that has, as far as she knew, one kid, and plans to push her out of the picture. And starting beef with said kid, as well as telling her to get over it, isn't not that bad. Neither is getting a bell for Chessie, treating her like a Victorian servant. Meredith has been framed as being vilified for being a working woman, except Elizabeth, the mom, is a business owner. I don't see the story punishing Meredith for having a career, but criticizing her for willing to fracture an already broken family to secure a lifestyle. Even the twins' extreme behavior towards her, yes, the lake incident is wild, doesn't make Meredith a victim, so much as it shows how Nick was the wrong guy for her. They got engaged in what feels like 5 days, so maybe she did like the vineyard income just a little bit more than the man himself. A little bit. He's not exactly innocent there either. But it's the Napa Valley. She doesn't need to bulldoze her way into messy family dynamics to get a dude with money. She chose that route, and her decisions is what makes her an antagonist. Social expectations do influence characters' actions, but those pressures do not negate choice. Sharpay Evans chose to pursue a guy who was taken, and she embarrassed herself, but she learned from her mistakes and got over him for her own movie. I have noticed that the type of female characters that the internet loves to protect tend to fit a certain aesthetic. They're feminine, fashionable, and confidently so. Perhaps the biggest reason as to why people feel the need to defend them is because they have characteristics that are vilified in real life. Well, for women. Women who are confident, feminine, socially strategic, hardworking, looks for financial stability in a relationship, or, God forbid, are high maintenance, are judged as shallow and self-centered. Defending these fictional villains can start to feel like defending femininity itself. Time and time again, stories position the girl who isn't like the other girls as morally superior to the flatly written mean girl in pink. The concept of femininity being shorthand for being airheaded or malicious is an entirely different conversation. How many hobbies and interests associated with femininity get social backlash and are seen as lesser than? If you dare say anything about astrology, prepare for the eye rolls. But that's where the overcorrection comes from. When we finally see a feminine villain that actually is well written and compelling, the instinct isn't to engage with her complexity, but to absolve her. The trend of protecting female villains also reinforces the idea that unless someone does something cartoonishly evil, then anyone can be forgiven. No. Passive aggression, sideways compliments, and constant disrespect is enough reasons to detach from someone. It's not being too sensitive or petty, it's protecting your energy. Not all characters need a wicked level evaluation. And something about this character's only did bad thing because they're hurting inside doesn't resonate with me. I just don't like the movie The Breakfast Club. Especially how it wants us to sympathize with behavior it doesn't meaningly hold accountable. Like, aw, poor baby. The jock traumatized some innocent nerd because he's just so pressured. One of the reasons I like Heathers is because it demonstrates that some people are mean, not out of some veneer of misunderstandings and inner torture, but because that's how they are, that's what's celebrated, and because they don't get repercussions for their actions. It's why social cruelty happens. Why is Heather such a mega beach? Because she can be. Villains are allowed to be villains. Whatever context went on to lead them to evil can make their story interesting, but it doesn't excuse them. Like Tom Ripley and Hans Gruber are entertaining and charismatic as heck, and we don't feel the need to claim them as not the true evil all along. I think currently in movies, there's a shyness of showing actual villains. Like they do certain stuff to protect their family, or they're a tragic soul or whatever, but I have a feeling we'll see some pleasant changes on that front. In the near decades-long academic analysis of how women are depicted in stories, true complexity isn't found in sanitizing female villains, but in allowing them the same moral range long afforded to men. Even if they're likable and fabulous, we don't need to claim girly pop villains as victims. That's my take on allowing glamorous, interesting female villains to be villains. Thank you all for watching, and hope to see you all in the next one.